BlackRock CEO Larry Fink just said that if the US doesn't get their debt under control, they risk losing their dollar reserve status to Bitcoin. That's right, not gold, not Chinese yuan, Bitcoin. So does the US government see it this way? If so, why are they embracing it by starting a strategic Bitcoin reserve and even currently looking for ways to buy more? Plus, Eric Trump reveals why he fell in love with Bitcoin. And his reason is a great reminder of a value proposition often forgotten in an age of increasing Bitcoin financialization. The wave of endless positive Bitcoin news just keeps coming in 2025, and yet here we are still sitting around 85K, 25% below all-time highs. Stick around till the end of the video and we'll touch on what could be going on with the price. But first, the latest hit of bullish news. Yesterday, Larry Fink, CEO of BlackRock, the largest asset manager in the world with over $10 trillion in assets, came out with his annual chairman letter to investors. And in it, he made some very interesting remarks about Bitcoin. Fink starts off the letter writing about people being more anxious about the economy than at any time in recent memory. Then, on page 20, he drops the bomb, in a section aptly titled, "Can Bitcoin Eat Away at the US Dollar's Reserve Status?" Fink writes, "The US has benefited from the dollar serving as the world's reserve currency for decades, but that's not guaranteed to last forever. The national debt has grown at 3 times the pace of GDP since Times Square's debt clock started ticking in 1989. This year, interest payments will surpass $952 billion, exceeding defense spending. By 2030, mandatory government spending and debt services will consume all federal revenue, creating a permanent deficit. If the US doesn't get its debt under control, if deficits keep ballooning, America risks losing that position to digital assets like Bitcoin." Fink goes on, "To be clear, I'm obviously not anti-digital assets, but 2 things can be true at the same time. Decentralized finance is an extraordinary innovation. It makes markets faster, cheaper, and more transparent. Yet that same innovation could undermine America's economic advantage if investors begin seeing Bitcoin as a safer bet than the dollar. To be clear, this is the largest financial institution in the world suggesting that the US dollar may be at risk of losing its reserve status to Bitcoin, not to gold like many may expect. Meanwhile, gold is currently worth $21 trillion, and Bitcoin is only worth $1.7 trillion. If that doesn't make it crystal clear that Bitcoin is severely undervalued here, I really don't know what to tell you. Just a quick side note on gold. Gold is obviously on a historic run so far in 2025. Many gold bugs are doing victory laps, celebrating its outperformance over Bitcoin over the last few months. But zoom out and the truth becomes as clear as day. Gold is currently just now breaking out of a 12-year downtrend when priced in Bitcoin. This is what gold bugs are celebrating. Just some food for thought. Now back to Bitcoin being a threat to US dollar dominance. Does the US government see it this way? It seems like maybe they don't, since the Trump admin has been glowingly pro-Bitcoin, even going as far as signing an executive order creating a Bitcoin strategic reserve last month. It seems counterintuitive on the surface. Investor Tom Lee was on CNBC yesterday talking about markets and Bitcoin. Towards the end of the interview, he was asked about Fink's statement on Bitcoin being a threat to the dollar.
Heading into Wednesday.
Bitcoin's testing recent near-term lows, definitely as a risk-off trade, and when the NASDAQ goes down, Bitcoin seems to go down. But it also really likes the idea of more Fed rate cuts or the Fed being more lenient. So if we get that on Friday, is this a decent time to be stacking?
I think so.
You do, at 80.
Yeah, I think, part of this was Bitcoin seasonally was just not going to be attractive until after March ends. And now we're finally exiting March. And so I think not only is the calendar looking better, but as you're saying, the Fed and central banks are easing, QT's ending. I think that with positive Washington sort of tailwinds means I think Bitcoin can do well to the end of the year.
Right. People love it when I ask you what your year-end target is on Bitcoin. It makes people very excited.
Yes. And I mean,
crazy high again?
I think it's still 150 or higher as possible. Okay. I know it doesn't feel like it, but once we get through this tariff and that agenda around tariffs, markets can look forward to things that could be positive.
Do you agree with what Larry Fink said just about the idea that the dollar could suffer as a result?
They want it to
Bitcoin, yeah.
Yes. I mean, I'd say that Washington understands that too. That's why stablecoin, really getting the right sort of legislation for stablecoin is important, because in crypto, when it comes to stablecoins, the dollar is way more dominant there than it is in traditional markets. So I think you actually kind of protect the dollar with stablecoin legislation.
Do you have a view?
I think Tom Lee is right. Washington likely knows that Bitcoin is a long-term threat to the dollar, and them embracing it along with US stablecoins is likely their play. As US Treasury Secretary Bessent has said publicly, they are embracing US stablecoins. It seems that they see stablecoins as a way to strengthen the dollar in the midst of the financial revolution that is Bitcoin. In that regard, you can see that the strategic Bitcoin reserve is likely a hedge. If Bitcoin is inevitably going to take over a large chunk of global settlement, they clearly would want to be the largest holders of Bitcoin globally, as well as embrace stablecoins to keep the US dollar as the dominant global currency for the foreseeable future. Ben Workman talked about this on Swan Signal Live a few weeks ago.
You can't assume that innovation is going to stop and you're going to be the reserve currency in the world forever. So when new technologies come out and new assets come out that can start to fill that type of a role, if you are the leading country with the leading strategic reserve currency, you have to evaluate whether or not this new emerging asset could potentially be a threat to you. And if it is, strategically, you should probably be participating in owning some portion of that asset, if it's even just to protect your current standing in the world. So I think that making the case for that to be strategic and then separating out the other ones, it made me optimistic that they do understand what they're looking at, and they're not fully just falling to lobbying efforts in terms of what coins get involved here, because this is a really big deal. When you make this type of announcement, you can't just throw something out there. You have to put some critical thought into each of the assets that you're going to include in something like this and be able to defend why it's a strategic interest for the country to have them.
So to me, this explains why the US would be publicly embracing and adopting Bitcoin at the Treasury level. The cat is out of the bag, and if they don't embrace it, they risk being completely left behind. This is game theory. Once you realize you can't stop it, you have to embrace it. You have to play the game. Another aspect of Bitcoin that has continually gotten lost, especially as it gets further and further entrenched into the existing financial system, is Bitcoin as resistance money. Bitcoin is a decentralized, permissionless alternative to the centrally controlled fiat system that is often weaponized against individuals, businesses, and even nation states. Eric Trump was on Fox Business this morning, and he talked about falling in love with Bitcoin after being debanked by several financial institutions over the years.
Welcome back. The Trump family's crypto blitz. Eric Trump and Donald Trump Jr. announcing their investment in a Bitcoin mining company. The Trump's American data centers merging with American Bitcoin, aiming to create the world's largest crypto miner and build its own Bitcoin reserve. Joining me now is Trump Organization Executive Vice President and the President's son, Eric Trump. Eric, great to see you. Congratulations on this. Tell us what you're trying to do and why a Bitcoin reserve is needed.
Yeah, you know, Maria, I never thought I'd fall into the world of crypto until every bank started canceling us for absolutely no reason whatsoever other than the fact that my father was in politics, right? I mean, we got canceled by absolutely everybody. They came after us viciously. And it wasn't until that time that I realized how important crypto was, right? Something that's cheaper, faster, more transparent. You can't be canceled. That's global. And it's what made me fall in love with Bitcoin. It's what made me fall in love with, you know, DeFi and CeFi and stablecoins. And we put a lot of our effort into it. We're building a great company, World Liberty Financial. Everybody's talking about it. It's doing phenomenally well. We just launched a stablecoin. On the other side, American Bitcoin. I think it's going to be one of the great companies out there. So I truly believe in it. And really, my epiphany was, again, cancel culture and what these financial institutions controlled by very few at the top were able to do to people that they didn't like, even families like ours that had a lot of zeros at the end of their balance sheet.
Well, that's incredible that's one of the catalysts that got you into this. Which banks canceled you? What happened?
Oh, God, everybody. Capital One being the largest. I've sued them recently. Chase canceled us.
Okay, so it was Capital One, because I know that Capital One also canceled Melania Trump, I understand as well. So it was Capital One. Yeah. Who else?
Maria, you can't believe when you get those calls, right? And we have properties, commercial buildings that have thousands of, literally hundreds and hundreds of employees, thousands of people that work in those buildings every single day. They call you up saying, in 2 weeks, we're going to need you to shut down the bank account, otherwise we're going to send. I mean, these bank accounts are ecosystems, and they came after us viciously because my father was in the White House and they wanted to punish us, right? It was legal lawfare, it was political lawfare, and that's what opened my eyes. I mean, I'm a hard asset guy. My entire life has been building real, hotels, golf courses, real estate buildings, right, commercial buildings, etc. That's what I've done. if there's anybody's eyes who shouldn't have been open to the world of cryptocurrency, it was mine, other than I realized the power that these banks had, and I realized how they were exerting that power, and they were canceling businesses all over our country. It was political. It was forced. They were targeting people that they didn't like. It wasn't fair. And then you realize that there's not a single thing that those banks do that can't be done better, cheaper, more efficiently, faster on blockchain. I mean, why is it that the modern financial system runs 9 to 5, Monday through Friday? Why is it, Maria, that if you want to go get a loan and you've been banking with a certain bank for 30 years, it would probably take you 100 days to go do it, and you'd be filling out antiquated paper forms? It doesn't make sense, right? And again, that's why I fell in love with crypto, and I truly believe that Bitcoin is one of the greatest stores of value. Immediately liquid, an unbelievable hedge against real estate, and something we're really excited about.
This interview was a great reminder of, in my view, the most important use case of Bitcoin, besides its protection against debasement through its fixed supply. And that's its ability to empower everyone with the freedom to control their own money. And it's one very close to my heart, as in my home country of Canada, we saw exactly how our money can be weaponized against us during the famous trucker protest in 2022. And this kind of financial tyranny doesn't only happen on the individual or the business level. Nation states have also woken up to the need for a global settlement layer that sits outside the authority of any single nation. Only Bitcoin offers freedom for everyone to transact without the fear of being censored or stolen from through debasement. And so, in my opinion, this is by far the best risk-adjusted time to buy Bitcoin ever. And you can buy Bitcoin on sale today with Swan. Visit swan.com or download the app by searching Swan Bitcoin in the App Store. Swan has the fastest and easiest onboarding experience in the industry. You go from signing up to buying Bitcoin in minutes. If you already have a healthy stack of Bitcoin in self-custody and want to upgrade your security, then Swan Vault is for you. Swan Vault is a multi-signature custody solution where you vastly improve your security from loss or theft without sacrificing sovereignty. Visit swan.com/vault to learn more. And finally, a quick shout out to Mara, the largest publicly traded Bitcoin miner, for supporting this show and for helping make Bitcoin the world's most decentralized and secure monetary network. So far this week has been another barrage of positive Bitcoin news that makes us scratch our head at why the price is still hovering around 85K. Saylor announced another $2 billion purchase yesterday. USD stablecoin giant Tether bought another $750 million worth in Q1. GameStop just announced another $1.3 billion bid to buy Bitcoin that should be hitting the market soon. So how can the price be sideways and down with so many massive bids? I've once again seen the call of manipulation and price suppression popping up, which in my opinion is straight up FUD. For one thing, these bids, more specifically MicroStrategy's $2 billion buy, had already been announced and was expected by the market. For GameStop, I think market participants are waiting for the actual buy, not the announcement of money raised. And that announcement should be coming in pretty soon. Another thing people seem to forget is that Bitcoin is in the big leagues now. We're at the point where a $2 billion purchase is actually quite small when you take into account that Bitcoin is a $1.7 trillion asset. That $2 billion purchase is only 0.1% of the entire Bitcoin market cap. Another thing I've mentioned before, and that many Bitcoiners don't like to admit, is that long-term Bitcoiners and short-term traders are taking profit. Simply put, when the Bitcoin price goes up, there are more buyers than sellers. When the price goes down, there are more sellers than buyers. It's really as simple as that. And remember, money is a means to an end. Although you may have a diamond hand, never sell mentality, many people don't hold that same belief. Or they have such a large portion of their wealth in Bitcoin that they need to shave some off the top to pay for things that life throws at them. And finally, the overall macro picture is still in the driver's seat for now. Stocks and equities have had a rough go so far in 2025, as they catch up with falling global liquidity and overall market uncertainty. Be patient. Global liquidity is now on the rise, and I expect this market downturn to be short-lived and things to pick up leading into the summer, if not earlier. And Bitcoin is poised to once again be the biggest winner. And here's a reminder to zoom out. Since October 2023, Bitcoin is already up a whopping 207%. That's compared to gold, which is only up 67%, SPY, which is only up 30%, and the NASDAQ, which is only up 25%. So relax, be patient, and have peace in the fact that you own something that has incredible and unmatched upside, and is still extremely undervalued. That's it for today. Let me know what you think of all this in the comments below. Like this video, share it with someone, subscribe to the channel, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss the next video. Thanks for hanging out with me, and remember, own Bitcoin. Don't let Bitcoin own you.